Hello everyone, and welcome to my tomb. You know, as a lich with plans of world domination, I can sometimes grow bored of my day-to-day. In order to rectify that, I have delved into a new world of horror, the world of RPG horror stories. Today we're going to look at a player that doesn't want to interact with the game because it's quote-unquote too hard and will kill him, as well as what happens if you want to teach your mom D&D. Now please sit down and listen to my tale. Our first story today is titled TLDR. Insufferable know-it-all bosses everyone around and rage quits because OSR is not fair, by Reddit user Entrepreneur Long 9830. Not gonna lie, not my proudest player moment, but hear me out. I was playing Black Sword Hack, a game I've been dying to play for a while. We get a group together, yay! The GM has a whole game world plot he wants to run us through. In BSH, there's a whole collaborative world building part that I was stoked to try. The GM's idea was pretty mid, but I want to play the game, so I'll see how it goes. Session 0, we all get together to roll up characters, do world building. 3 of us show up and get about the business of character building. So the 4th guy shows up and he's loud, which is fine. What's not fine is he was also an insufferable know-it-all. He didn't bother reading the rules and asked, "So is this like OD&D?" We said, "Kinda. It's not, really." And he was off to the races. He went on to tell us how he doesn't like OSR because you die too quick, and we should use Rifts as a system. A long monologue of exactly why Rifts was superior, which he tried to get us to do 3 to 4 times before the game started. We tell him, no, we want to play this system, and he's welcome to play. He then went on long-winded rants of, this is how OD&D is done. It must be done this way and that way, and went on tangents on minutia, all the while completely oblivious to the fact that you're all experienced players. He spoke to us like we're noobs, wouldn't let anyone get in a word in edgewise. Super annoying. Oh god, okay, so don't you just hate it when somebody tries to mansplain to you about things that you already know? It's like if an engineer was talking to someone who's like a fry cook, and they're just saying, hey, you know, you could build this, because that's how gravity works. We could build this bridge this way and it'd just be way better. It's like, dude, come on. I know more than you. I don't want to be the asshole to just say that straight up, but I will if I need to. Okay, well, let's get back onto the story. All of us other players were pretty into a low fantasy setting. Not so much with the hobbits and shires and shit. During the care gen process, he decides he's going to be an elf. Fair play, he can do what he wants. Now our world canonically has elves. Fine. He then begins on another tirade about what the economy of the world is going to be, with exhaustive treatises on how elves and dwarves and hobbits trade with one another. He then goes on to tell us dragons are canon. We all call him out and nicely say, we haven't done world building yet. We don't know if all those races / monsters are going to be in the game, and stated we were more into low fantasy. So we begin the world building phrase, and he again starts dominating the conversation and telling us all how it's gonna be. We gently course correct him and remind him it's a group thing, not a you thing, and he would always end with the classic, I'm not telling you what to do, I just like to ask questions, before trying to rev us into Lord of the Rings again. So we slowly slog through world building, and finally after endless rounds of I just like to ask questions, we're kind of tired and done. I commiserate with another player via DMs between sessions on how annoying this guy is, and we both agree. Session 1. So we're villagers, and we start out in a hamlet, and there's an oncoming menace on the way. An envoy of elves shows up to ask us for help and stop the menace. We bite because it's the pot, and then the insufferable elf, let's call him IE from here on out, shows up. He decided to play a twisted science character. In BSH, those are kind of artificers, but they just make weird science shit. You start with a couple of inventions selected from a short list of decidedly mid options. You have to spend money and research a lot to get OP shit. So he tells the GM, my starting invention is a pocket ballista. It's the size of a crossbow, but the damage of a ballista. We all remind him he needs to pick the mid shit from the list, and he ignores us and tells us the virtues of his ballista. The GM tells him no, and he pouts and doesn't select any inventions. Okay, so strike two. This guy's just not even trying anymore to really interact with the game from a mechanic standpoint. It's basically just my way or the highway with him, it seems. Well, let's see how it gets even worse, because the story's only about halfway done. So then, he decides he's elf royalty, and he's in charge of the envoy. Okay, it kinda makes sense. He's a PC, so we roll with it. He then goes on to chew up the scene with extensive descriptions of the elf town and its economy, and is treating us like serfs. At one point, one of the other players in character says, "You seem to talk a lot from your ass, more than your mouth." And I start laughing my ass off. IE literally says, "Do you know who I am?" And I say, "Yes, you're Sir Assmouth." And I call him that for the rest of our short game. So he decides we're basically hirelings and dictates what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. We're all going to sign the fealty pact to serve him after the adventure's over. No. We all push back and tell him, "No, you're not the party leader. We all have a say in the game." And after much protesting from IE, we head out. So we travel through a forest and we're trying to be all stealthy. IE decides to hide in a bunch of trees. However, it turns out the trees he was hiding in were baby ints, and he's surrounded by 3 aggro trees. IE immediately flips his wig. He starts raving about how he's going to die and there's no way he can survive this onslaught. I was nearby and seriously considered not helping him. So he's having an absolute fit about his situation and went on about, "If this was Rifts," and combat ensued. None of the ints hit him. He was unharmed, and I even waded in to one-shot one of them, so he wasn't totally fucked. He rants about how unfair and how he's going to die, and went on non-stop, shouting over the table while we all took our turns. So it's his turn. He rages about how he's gonna die and refuses to roll. We all try to encourage him to go for it, but he literally has a tantrum and goes silent. GM checks in on him, no answer. Seems like he stormed off. So the GM takes over his character because we all thought he rage quit. I was relieved. So we dispatched the ints and no one even lost a hit point. Pretty easy intro to combat. IE pops back in after like 10 minutes. "Okay, I'm back." A collective groan was muffled at the table. So we head on to the next scene and we get bum rushed by a troll and 2 werewolves. He flips out again, hysterical that it's unfair we should be in combat again. He says, "These guys are too OP and we're all going to die." He wasn't wrong on that one, but he behaved like a spoiled child the entire time. His turn comes up and he refuses to roll again. "I'm just gonna die, so what's the point?" At this point, all the players were over his theatrics and were like, "Dude, just roll a dice. Have fun. So what if we die?" And he got more agitated. Eventually it descended into a shouting match, and I was all, "Dude, just roll the fucking dice. You're being a big baby." That was the straw that broke the camel's back. He rages that we wouldn't be in this situation if we were playing Rifts, and he flips the table and tells me to fuck off, which, in all fairness, was warranted. We decided to end the session, and I quit the game right after. The end. Okay, so I don't say this too often, but this guy was just being a bitch. Just that easy. Who, in the very first combat of a very brand new campaign, starts whining and saying that they're going to die without trying to roll a single die, right? this guy just sucks and just seems like a drain to play with, especially with the know-it-allness to people that already know the game and people that he's going to be playing with. Not to mention the fact that he also wants to be the leader and wants to take over and tell everyone what to do. It seems like this guy not only has a good amount of character bleed, a massive amount of character bleed, this guy also is just whiny and so afraid of death in a game of all things. Imagine just him playing Dark Souls with all the deaths that happened there. God, this guy just sounds horrendous to play with. I'm glad OP got out of there, but I do wonder how the rest of the party went. I don't think that OP was the asshole here. He definitely wasn't. And honestly, everything that he said wasn't even that bad. Sounds like he was actually just giving the guy a dose of reality, to be honest. Just saying, just roll the die, you're being a baby, nothing's even happened. And the fact that, like, hey, everyone did die, so it's like you might as well roll for a chance, or at least a heroic death, and see what happens. Now, I know OSR, Old School Renaissance, for you guys that don't really know, is like a much deadlier game than modern D&D, because it's supposed to represent the old school, the older editions of D&D, where wizards had a D4 for the hit die, and you didn't automatically get max hit die at level 1, just to give you an example. But there is a major difference in how you play an OSR game versus how you play a modern D&D game, in that you have to interact with the setting a lot more, which I think is fun, and I think it's actually a very nice breath of fresh air compared to modern D&D, in that you have to actually think and use the things that you have on you. So you actually need to use the rope that you have, or the pitons, I don't know how to pronounce them, and think of inventive ways to use those to either avoid combat or to end it quickly. So instead of modern D&D where you're actually fighting like a giant worm, classic D&D, you would look around and find there's a giant pillar you can actually try to knock down on the worm to kill it, without having to like actually walk up and hit it with a sword, which could lead to your death much more easily. But it seems like this guy was also just trying to convince the group to switch to Rifts by just being a total asshole in all meanings of the word. Seems like he was just whining and didn't even want to interact with the game from a mechanical standpoint, to a point where he wouldn't even roll a die, and that's very suspicious. Okay, well, the less said about this guy, the better, I think. Glad OP got out there. I hope he can hopefully rejoin the game. Maybe the group kicked that guy out because it seemed like no one else was entertaining his BS. So I guess we'll see if there's an update later on. I doubt it though. So with the tale of that guy coming to a close, let's look at what would happen if you were to instead run a game for your own mother in story 2. This story is called That Time I Set Up a One-Shot for My Mom and She Lived Up to Her Name, by Reddit user Bats and Cats in Pumpkins. I, 40 non-binary, have been playing TTRPGs on and off since I was in high school, and consistently for 7 years. I'm pretty passionate about RPGs, and as a grad student, they are my only regular entertainment. A few months ago, I moved back in with my parents to save money while in school and help my mom care for my dad, who has started to show early signs of dementia. I'm sorry about that, OP. My mom loves games, but like mostly old school board games, she hosts a monthly game night. I have never been. I'm always with my partner those nights. I explained D&D to her years ago, and she's been intrigued ever since. I also introduced her to 2/3 of my current group, and she really likes them. Since I have moved back, she's asked a few questions and made several comments expressing interest in playing sometime. A few months ago, the stars aligned, and I decided to set up a 5e one-shot for her. 4 of us from my monthly game decided to get together and make this happen. One of my friends chose to be the DM, his wife as a warlock. I brought my favorite sorcerer, My partner brought his barbarian, and after asking my mom some pointed questions, I made her a College of Whispers Bard High Elf. We picked Volo's Guide to Getting Murdered, a one short shot where the characters were level 5 and the plot revolves around a mystery. I was really excited. My mom loves games and mystery genre books. It was all coming together. Game day shows up and we gave ourselves about 4 hours to play. My friends, partner, and I had reservations for a restaurant after that and settled in. Game day shows up and we gave ourselves about 4 hours to play. My friends, partner, and I had reservations for a restaurant after that and settled in. For anyone who knows VGTGM, you will know the players start with invitations to a party in a tower, avoiding too many spoilers. The three of us PCs waited for my mom to make the first move, and the first move she did make. A guard asked if her character was there for the party, and oh, okay, that happened. Her character immediately took on a snooty and elitist attitude, talking about what an amazing performer she is and how lucky Volo is that she will be attending. From there, whenever the guard said anything, she treated him like he was a peon. Once arriving at the party, she insulted the other musicians. When the guard offered to let her take over the entertainment, she told him he couldn't afford her services. When our characters were introduced, she treated mine like a simpleton, the warlock like a puppy, and the barbarian like an afterthought. She tried sowing political drama among the partygoers before the mystery even began. It was absolutely wild. The DM played all this with a straight face, but I was laughing nervously. She was constantly making persuasion, intimidation, and charisma checks, and we hadn't really even started. Every time she had a choice to make, she would say, well, I can do whatever I want. It's just a game, and make the most horrifyingly Heron or war crimes adjacent choice possible. This wasn't for laughs. She was just playing how she genuinely wanted to. With an hour and a half to go, the DM rushed us through until we were confronting the pre-assumed murder. My partner and I immediately started combat just to end this uncomfortable situation, and we got to do a round of combat before finishing so she can get a taste for it. Afterwards, she was thrilled and excited, and I decided I would never play with her again because what the fuck, Mom? TLDR, my mom, guess her name, immediately and with no hesitation becomes that player and lives up to her name. See, the thing is, a lot of times when people want to get their loved ones into D&D, they stress the fact that you can kind of do whatever you want. And while that's not inaccurate, it's a good thing, actually. It's kind of not the way you should be stressing things. It's much easier to emphasize the fact that it's a collaborative story building game and that everyone is putting together to make the story happen. The GM as well. So if you wanted to get your mom into this game, it's probably easier to say, hey, everyone here is together. We're all friends. We're all working together in this game. So maybe if you can be a lot more collaborative and you're still able to do what you want to do in this game, but stressing that you can be more collaborative with the others and make funny or fun or epic moments happen is really what you should be stressing if you want to get a loved one into D&D. So the OP here, in this case, didn't really do much to help smooth the transition over for their mother, but, it's one of those things also where new players will also kind of go way overboard in terms of testing the bounds of what they can or can't do, and I think that's what happened to their mom in this case. Overall, I hope the mom eventually kind of gets out of that phase. While I don't suspect OP will play with them in the future, they probably should, it's their mother. They should talk to them and say, hey, maybe we could probably go over what happened and maybe figure out a better way to play through this. And yeah, it's really just as simple as a simple conversation. And with their mom and the fact that they seem to have a very good relationship with their mother, things could definitely be fixed and they could play together in the future. But if you're interested in getting your family into D&D, try not to stress certain parts of the game and be a bit more accurate to the collaborative story building part. So that way people don't take the main character syndrome and go way overboard. Alright? And so, with the tales told and the bells tolled, I must return to my slumber, but be back soon, as I will relay to you more RPG horror stories. Goodbye, everyone.